Wanderer of the Wasteland by Zane Grey, Chapter 18, Part 4. While in the earthly starlit gloom so dimly red, Adam slowly plodded across to the Veery camp. That idea grew in his mind. It had augmented before this hour only to faint at the strength of her spirit, but tonight was different. It marked a climax. If Magdalene Veery showed any weakening, any change of spirit, Adam knew he would have reached the end of his endurance. She would be lying or sitting on the stone bench. It was not possible to breathe inside the shack. Terrible as were the furnace winds, they had to be breasted. They had to be fought for the very air of life. She had not the strength to walk up and down, to and fro through those endless hours. Adam's keen eyes, peering through the red-tinged obscurity, made out the dark shape of Veery staggering along back and forth like an old man driven and bewildered, hounded by the death he feared. The sight gave Adam a moment of fierce satisfaction. Strong as was the influence of Magdalene Veery, it could not keep down hate for this selfish and fallen man. Selfish beyond all frailty of human nature. The narrow mind obsessed with self, the I and me and mine, the miserable littleness that could not forgive, that could not understand. Adam had pity even in his hate. He found the woman on the bench lying prone, a white, limp, fragile shape, motionless as stone. Sitting down, he bent over to look into her face. Her unfathomable eyes, wide and dark and strained, stirred his heart as never before. They were eyes to which sleep was a stranger, haunted eyes like the strange midnight at which they gazed out, supernaturally bright, mirroring the dim stars, beautiful as the waking dreams never to come true. Eyes of melancholy, of unutterable passion, of deathless spirit. They were the eyes of woman and of love. Adam took her wasted hand and held it while waiting for the wind to lull so that she could hear him speak. At length the hot blast moved on like the receding of fire. "Magdalene, I can't stand this any longer," he said. "You mean these winds of hell?" she panted in a whisper. "No, I mean your suffering. I might have stood your spiritual ordeal. Your remorse, your agony of loss of the daughter, Ruth, your brave spirit defying Veery's hate. But I can't stand your physical torment. You're wasting away, you're withering, burning up. This hand is hot as fire and dry as a leaf. You must drink more water. Magdalene, lift your head." "I cannot," she whispered with wan smile. "No strength left." Adam lifted her head and gave her water to drink. Then as he laid her back, another blast of wind came roaring through the strange, opaque night. How it moaned and wailed around the huge boulders and through the brush. It was a dance of wind fiends hounding the lost spirits of this valley of horrors. Adam felt the slow, tight tide of his blood called stingingly to his skin and his extremities, and there it burned. It was not only his heart and his lungs that were oppressed, but the very life of his body seemed to be pressing to escape through the pores of his skin, pressed from inward by the terrible struggle to survive, and pressed back from outside by the tremendous blast of wind. The wind roared by and lulled to a moan. The wave of invisible fire passed on. Out there in the dim starlit, Veery staggered back and forth under the too great burden of his fate. He made no sound. He was a specter. Beyond the gray level of gloom with its strange shadows rose the immense slope of loose stones, all shining with dim, pale red glow, all seemingly alive, waiting for the slide of the avalanche and on the instant a rock cracked with faint ring, rolled with little hollow reports, mockingly, full of terrible and latent power. It had ominous answer in a slight jar of the earth under Adam's feet, perhaps an earthquake settling of the crust, and then the whole vast slope moved with a low grating sound, neither roar nor crash nor rattle. The avalanche had slipped a foot. Adam could have pealed out a cry of dread for this woman. What a ghastly fantasy, the struggle for life in Death Valley. What mockery of wind and desert and avalanche. "Once, Phil, listen," whispered the woman. "Do you hear it passing on?" "Yes," replied Adam, bending lower to see her eyes. Did she mean that the roar of wind was dying away? "The stormy blast of hell with restless fury drives the spirits onward," she said, her voice rising. "I know, I understand, but you mustn't speak such thoughts. You must not give up to the wandering of your mind. You must fight," implored Adam. "My friend, the fight is over. The victory is mine. I shall escape Viri. He possessed my body, poor, weak thing of flesh, but he wanted my love, my soul to kill. He'll never have either one's Phil. I'll not live through the night. I am dying now." "No, no," cried Adam huskily. "You only imagine that. It's only the oppression of these winds and the terror of the night. This awful, unearthly valley of death. You'll live. The winds will wear out soon. If only you fight, you'll live. And tomorrow, Magdalene, so help me God, I'll take you away." He expected the inflexible and magnetic opposition of her will, the resistless power of her spirit to uplift and transform, and this time he was adamant. At last the desert force within him had risen above all spiritual obstacles. The thing that called was life. Life as it had been in the beginning of time. But no mockery or eloquence of refusal was forthcoming from Magdalene Viri. Instead, she placed the little ivory case containing the miniature painting of her daughter Ruth in Adam's hand and softly pressed it there. "But if I should die, I want you to have this picture of Ruth. I've had to hide it from Viri, to gaze upon it in his absence. Take it, my friend, and keep it and look at it until it draws you to her once, Phil. I'll not bewilder you by mystic prophecies, but I tell you solemnly, with the clairvoyant truth given to a woman who feels the presence of death, that my daughter Ruth will cross your wanderer's trail, come into your life and love you. Remember what I tell you. I see. You are a young man still. She is a budding girl. You two will meet, perhaps in your own wastelands. Ruth is all of me, magnified 1,000 times. More, she is as lovely as an unfolding rose at dawn. She will be a white living flame. It will be as if I had met you long ago when I was a girl and gave you what by the nature of life was yours. Once, Phil, you awakened my heart, saved my soul, taught me peace. I wonder how you did it. You were just a man. There's a falseness of life. The scales fell from my eyes one by one. It is the heart, the flesh, the bursting stream of red blood that count with nature. All this strife, this travail, makes toward a perfection never to be attained. But effort and pain, agony of flesh, and victory over mind make strength, virility. Nature loves barbarian women who nurse their children. I, with all my love, could not nurse my baby Ruth. It's a mystery no longer. Death Valley and the primitive man have opened my eyes. Nature did not intend people to live in cities but in forests, as live the Aryans of India, or like the savages of Brazilian jungles. Like the desert beasts, self-sufficient, bringing forth the few of their kind, but better, stronger species. The weak perish, so should the weak among men. I hear the roar. Another wind of death, but I've said all, Onceville. Go find Ruth, find me and her, and remember. The rich voice, growing faint at the last, failed as another furnace blast came swooping up with its dust and heat. Adam bowed his head and endured. It passed, and another came. The woman lay with closed eyes and limp body and nerveless hands. Hours passed, and the terrible wind subsided. The shadow of a man that was very swaying to and fro like a drunken specter vanished in the shack. The woman slept. Adam watched by her side till dawn, and when the gray light came, he could no more have been changed than could the night have been recalled. He would find the burros and pack them and saddle one for Magdalene Veery to ride. He would start to climb out of Death Valley, and when another night fell, he would have her safe on the cool mountain heights. If Veery tried to prevent this, it would mean the terrible end he merited. Adam gazed down upon the sleeping woman. How transparent, how frail a creature. She mystified Adam. She represented the creative force in life. She possessed that unintelligible and fatal thing in nature, the greatest, the most irresistible, the purest expression of truth, of what nature strove so desperately for, and it was beauty. Her youth, her error, her mocking acceptance of life, her magnificent spirit, her mother longing, her agony and her physical pains, her awakening and repentance and victory, all were written on the pale face, and with the indestructible charm of line and curve and classic feature constituted its infinite loveliness. She was a sleeping woman, and yet she was close to the angels. Adam looked from her to the ivory case in his hand. Her daughter Ruth. For me? He said wonderingly. How strange if we met. But that's impossible. She was wondering in mind. He carried the little case to his camp, searched in his pack for an old silk scarf, and tearing this, he carefully wrapped the gift and deposited it inside the leather money belt he wore hidden round his waist. Now to get ready to leave Death Valley, he exclaimed in grim exultance. Adam's burros seldom strayed far from camp. This morning, however, he did not find them near the spring, nor down in the notches of the mountain wall, so he bent his steps in the other direction. At last, round a corner of slope out of sight of camp, he espied them and soon had them trotting ahead of him. End of chapter 18, part 4.